Warthunder is a completely free-to-play MMORPG developed by Gaijin Entertainment. Plays planes, tanks, and ships, but no infantry. From the period of post-World War One, World War Two, to the Cold War and modern era. Yes, there is a World War Two era if Gaijin didn't forget about it. All you need to do is download and you can play right away. Okay, maybe it's not that simple. But Warthunder is the vehicle combat game for nerds and weirdos that hits the sweet spot between fast-paced arcade and satisfying realism. And after spending too much time on it, and I do mean too much time on it, I want to share my opinions to you guys about the good, the bad, and the ugly side of War Thunder. For this video, I'll be talking about the ground battles in War Thunder, mainly because I have more experience on it, and because I love tanks. I really, really love tanks. War Thunder is big, huge even. It has tanks, many, many tanks, from the ones that are a pleasure to use, to the ones you'll never use again, to the ones, yeah, you'll swear you'll never use again. All authentically and beautifully modeled.
I am directly below! The enemy scrotum!
With that also comes different characters. Fast, hard-hitting, heavily armored, or generally useless. From light, medium, heavy, tank destroyers, missile carriers, to non-tanks like milk trucks, all historical
quote-unquote
tanks.
epic fail.
Damage and ballistic simulation in War Thunder is amazing. I can't emphasize enough the scale and detail that goes on to each tank. It gives War Thunder an edge in depicting the performance of tanks, and in turn, making the combat really interesting. A module-based damage model makes the battle in War Thunder a lot more exciting. Knowing weak spots becomes crucial, as well as ammo rack management, knowledge of armor thickness, and shot placement. Not to mention, some of the kills can be very, very satisfying. You'll want to see a tank equivalent of a headshot? Nice. Combat in War Thunder is truly satisfying. In a game where there's so many ways to die, the only option is to respawn. In War Thunder, you don't really rely on one tank, but a few short respawns. Forming a lineup. A lineup is as important as choosing your vehicle. Depending on the game mode, you can spawn more than one time. You can even spawn as planes. Yes, planes, you heard me right. In some game modes, you can spawn as planes. Look, I know it's called ground battles, but bear with me. We'll talk about that later. Air assets makes people think twice about camping. But in the other hand, it makes it easy for people to abuse the use of planes. It again emphasizes the importance of a lineup. Given the many amounts of Given the many amounts of ways to die, no tool is invincible, which is why players have to respond, either to counter the enemy's tactic or regain lost ground. Momentum is important to win the battle. Ideally, this makes the combat more fluid and not so repetitive. Ideally. With that fact, a player should have a balanced lineup before going to battle, right? Right? To balance all of this, Warthunder implements a system called a BR, or Battle Rating. Different from tiers, BR is affected by a tank's performance in-game. So by that logic, yeah, you can start to see the problem here. It's not much about realism, it has more to do with the gap in technology. The fact that matchmaking is based solely on a battle rating. while there's a myriad of factors affecting it, makes a lot of problems. A lot of problems. But since it's quite a downward spiral, I'll save this topic for another time. Warthunder provides up to 47 and counting maps that you can choose from. True to the design, even though a few maps are fictional, all of them are based on real life locations, from urban combat to wide open fields to suburban battlefields. Each map gives you a variety of unique combat conditions so that your ability to adapt and overcome will be tested. Famous World War II battlefields they are depicted ranging from Normandy, El Alamein, Berlin, and Eastern Front battlefields such as Kursk, Stalingrad, also less known World War II battlefields like Karelia, Mozdok, Breslau, Maginot Line, and more. Now, I'm not going to list all the maps here, so I recommend you check the Warton Wiki. It'll give you a perspective on the sheer detail that Gaijin puts on the historical importance of the maps. Warthunder also depicts Cold War battlefields such as Fulda, Vietnam, Korea, and Sinai, and fictional battlefields such as Alaska, Middle East, Cargo Port. Well, I say fictional, but they're still modeled or at least inspired by real life location. You get the idea. The details of the map are, to be honest, average. Gaijin does nail the landmarks that needs to be displayed, such as the Reichstag, Cologne Cathedral, and the Stalingrad factory. But it somehow left me with a feeling they're just there for eye candy, a background. Like, it's not part of the game. Maybe it's because you're inside a tank. I just can't feel a significant interaction with the map. It also compounded by Gaijin map design philosophy, which I'll get into later. But in all, Gaijin catches the feeling of the places they want to convey very nicely. The storming of Reichstag, the Panther Duel of Cologne, the Battle of Kursk, accompanied by wall objects that are not too shabby, and strikes a nice line between depicting actual battlefield while also translating it to a vehicle-centric gameplay. And even maps designed solely by Gaijin is not that half bad. I just wish they apply it to gameplay more smoothly, but we'll get to that later. I've been playing War Thunder for years. When people say War Thunder is beautiful, I'll say it's meh. War Thunder is not a bad looking game. It's just War Thunder. But that could come from just years of looking at Karelia over and over and over again. The thing is, they don't lie about the graphics in the trailers. I commend that. It's just that, in my opinion, there's not a whole lot of focus on other than the tank itself. And like I told you before, that's superb. Everything else is secondary. While the model and effects are good, the world just feels kinda bland. Which again makes sense since you're in a tank. You won't feel the sense of scale in a town, and logically, you aren't meant to take in all the detail of each building. And there's not much to take from the scenery anyway. Same goes for the foliage. It's really nothing special. It's not bad, it's just not the main focus. And don't tell me we're gonna defend this. The main focus is you and your tank, and what affects it. The track marks, muzzle flash, haze, wet surfaces, reflection of light. It keeps you focused on your tank. You sometimes don't realize the world around you, which is exactly a vehicle-centric game should make you feel. Besides, it's a free-to-play game. I think there's a lot of leeway that has to be made so that more people can play. On the bright side, what I can tell you for sure is that you don't need maximum settings to enjoy the game. Medium is my go-to settings, as some of the settings feels inconsistent, to say the least. Ultimately, it depends on your priorities. Thankfully, the game gives you enough basic options for it. Can't really say much about the sound because it changes all the time. Sometimes for the better, other times for the worse. But usually it's quite bland, nothing to write home about, except for a few notable and distinguishable sounds. Cannon sounds can vary from good to ear scratching. Machine guns, with the exception of the 50 cal, sounds underwhelming. Explosions becomes bland after a while. While passing planes can blow your eardrums. But they are distinguishable for the most part. Native voice line for each nation is also nice, even if some needs tweaking.
Fahrer Artillerieschlag auf meine Position.
Verstanden. Feuer.
Артиллерия, огонь по квадрату.
Вас понял. Огонь.
Kommunikation bereit.
右看，人工轰击开始。
为了胜利，向我开炮。
明白。目标确认，准备射击。
Colpite la mia posizione.
Ricevuto. Fuoco confermato.
Tirez sur ma position.
Affirmatif. Confirmez le tir.
Uppfattat! Indirekt M!
מבקש מטח עליי.
קיבלתי, נשרש. Target my location! Target my location!
Roger that. Fire.
While radio chat is mostly a meme, really.
Attack the D point.
Attack the D point.
Attack the D point. Attack the D point. Defend the D.
And again, Gaijin changes the sound every update or so take this section with a bucket of salt. As for me though, I always use sound mods, so it's not really a problem for me. Lastly, the soundtracks. Soundtracks are divided into two, the old legacy one and the new one. I thought it deserves some mention because it really reflected the evolution of Warthunder. You can still hear both in the menu and in game, corresponding to what era you play. Both are quite nice and serve brightly as a background music, but I couldn't help to like the legacy one much more than the new one. It fits Warthunder roots as an air-centric game so much, with a feeling of calmness and flight. The new one is certainly not bad. It kind of feels like it becomes more action packed, reflecting the changes of the type of warfare in War Thunder to more fast paced